Good morning, a very warm welcome. My name is Lisa Daisel. I'm from the Unisa Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. I just want to welcome all of you who have made time to attend this morning. I'm sure others will join us as we continue with this session. Just an announcement before we start with our program is that our speaker from the National Biodiversity Institute, Mr. Tebogo, informed us that they are experiencing network problems at the place where he needs to connect. So he will join us a bit later than intended, but we will just move some things around on the program so that we can accommodate until he is able to join us, but we will still strive to finish at the time that we mentioned. I'm just going to ask my colleague, Mrs. Manda Makanya, she's going to do the introduction or the welcome for us. But before I do that, I also just want to indicate that I'm joined by my other two colleagues, Ms. Mabowa from the Counselling and Career Development section in Johannesburg. Welcome, Mamashu. And then also Mr. Becky Mzobi, who works with us at the Central Unit in Pretoria. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we start the session, I just want to encourage you that as you are listening to the presentations, please feel free to post any questions you have in the chat. We have made some time on the program for questions and answers. During that time, I will unmute your or enable your microphones. So you are then more than welcome to share your information or the questions that you have with us live, and our speakers would then be able to respond to those. Mandu, you are welcome to just do the official welcome for us and the introduction of the speaker.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me pleasure this morning to welcome you all. I will hand over to Ms. Mabua to do the introduction of our guest speaker. For now, I just want to welcome all of you this morning, and we are grateful that you could spare your time to come and be with us so that you can learn from the great speakers. And ladies and gentlemen, please write down notes and make sure that you absorb everything that we are going to learn today. And this is for the purposes of your career development and also for refinement of your future careers. And I would like all of you to relax and enjoy to be in the audience of our speakers. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Makanya. Mamashu, if you could go ahead and just introduce our speaker to us. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, students and our speakers for today. Before I go on, I just want to find out if Mr. Malapane Tamaga is in our midst.
Yes, he is signed in, I think.
Yes,
okay. He is signed in.
Thank you so much. I actually have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker for today, which is Mr. Malapane Tamaga, who also happened to be my homeboy. Mr. Tamaga serves as an agricultural economist at the National Agricultural Marketing Council, and he is responsible for providing support on the agricultural regulatory measures, agricultural trust, transformation, and agricultural BEE. He is also responsible to support the agricultural master plan and agricultural policies as per the MAP Act of 1996. Mr. Tamaga holds a BSc in Agricultural Economics and Honours BSc in Agricultural Economics from the University of Fort Hare and University of Stellenbosch, respectively. He actually have about 10 years working experience in the agricultural sector that includes serving as a national manager of the African Farmers Association of South Africa, which is AFASA, and also an agricultural economist at NERPO. And his introduction to the sector was through the BKB graduate program. So you must also take note of that BKB graduate program. It might also serve purpose for you. That saw him serving in all the 5 divisions of BKB Ltd, namely grain trading and storage, livestock auctions, agricultural finance, wool and mohair technician, and BKP retail. So this, I believe that it can also, give our students an opportunity to be part of this group if you are able to research about it and find more information of it. Please take note of it. At the current moment, he is representing the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reforms and Rural Development as the maize trustee. He further serves as an Agri-BEE council member between the year 2017 and 2021. And he also consults as a secretary for Agricultural Sector Unity Forum, ASOF. His general interest in the agricultural sectors include, amongst others, agricultural policy, rural development, agricultural markets, and agricultural finance. He is also a regular opinion piece contributor under the third leadership theme on food for Mzansi. Colleagues and students, please help me to welcome Mr. Tamaha Malapane, who is going to share with us his journey as an agricultural economist. Thank you. The virtual platform is yours, Mr. Malapane.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sis Mamashu. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me.
Yes, you're clear. Thank you very much.
I must say that it feels great to be introduced here by a big sister. You know, Sesima Mashu, I know her very well. We're from the same village. You know, we went to the same schools. I remember very well when we entered the high school when I was doing my grade 8. These were the people that we really looked up to. You know how the grade 12s always look like. You know, they will make you want to be a grade 12. So these are the people that we always looked up to. She's someone that we get to interact a lot, including in community projects that we get involved in, you know, back home. So it's really an honor. It's a privilege. I'm quite happy. Apologies, colleagues, for my excitement. But as you can see here, Malapane Tamaha is my name. A lot tend to confuse the Malapane name with the surname. This is the name that, you know, I was named after my grandfather as our Siperi tradition. I am an agriculture economist, as per the introduction, with speciality really or interest in development finance, in economic research, and transformation related. Outside of my career, I'm interested, of course, in community development, as one has mentioned, in sports. Those who reside this side of Pretoria, in Mamelodi side, during the weekends, we get to interact a lot. They may not know, but this time around, probably when they see me, then you can give me a shout. This side of Mamelodi. I'm interested in politics because really it affects everything that we do. I'm also interested in current affairs. I think I will encourage everyone who has not really been following your current affairs to start doing so. I mean, now we've got social medias to do so. But really, if you follow news, whether it's TV, whether it's newspapers, you get to know what's going on and also the direction of our economy and of our country in general. I get to write. I really enjoy writing. I think I express myself better when I write more than when I engage. And I think there's power in writing because, you know, it gets to spaces where you really are far from, you know, because we also share our contact details as we write. You get to be, you know, contacted by people who you never thought could engage you. I also read, and for me, reading is really just to, you know, expand my knowledge and get to know more about things that, you know, I'm not necessarily exposed to in the environment that I operate in. I'm quite a family-oriented person, you know. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I get to share a lot of pictures with my family. I'm sharing a quote here on my right that says, "Start with the end in mind." Just to say that in whatever that you do, and this is coming from the Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I saw that it was also quoted a lot by a number of speakers in last month where I couldn't speak. It's one book that I'll recommend that you get to get yourself and really indulge in that regard. Okay, I have been asked to come here to share my experiences as a student and the challenges that one has, you know, been through, including financial management, and also got to land my first job, and including my life as a young professional. So my scope in terms of what I'm going to share with you here is really limited to this, hence just a few slides. But I'll be happy to engage after this for a few questions. So like I tried to put together some sort of a timeline here that starts from 1995, not to say I was born then. That is the year I started my schooling in that village where myself and Sesima Mashu comes from. Yeah, did my grade 1 then. You know, that was at the time when they were phasing off your sub A, your sub B. That's where I studied. There's a primary school there in the village called Pepane Primary School, and I went further to study in Clonary Secondary School. I'm sharing this purely just to show that, you know, a majority of students may be coming from, you know, deep rural areas of whether it's KZN or it's the Eastern Cape. And sometimes we tend to think that where we come from limits us in terms of where we can get to. I think I'm a testimony that you can get to wherever you want to, irrespective of your background. But there are a whole lot of things that you need to channel through yourself. You need to deliberately expose yourself to for you to be able to eventually be able to be invited by an institution such as Unisa to come and share with them your experiences. So luckily for me, I was able to finish my primary, my high school within recorded time. And in 2007, at an early age of 17 years, I went to the University of Fort Hare to study agriculture economics. Perhaps it's important at this point to share with you that while we were doing our grade 12, one of the products of our school, and that Franz Luitle came to our school just to share with us, careers in the agricultural space. You remember that at the time, internet was really as we have it now. Not everyone was exposed to internet as we have it now. In actual fact, where I come from, it was non-existent. So you couldn't just go to Google and type, the types of careers that you can find in different fields. So him coming to the school was really a great thing. And as he was presenting, I remember at the time I wanted to, become an engineer. Because when you looked around, most of the people who were really making a killing in terms of money were really from the engineering background. But I think after he had spoken to us, I really fell in love with agriculture. I was majoring in your maths and physics. Agriculture was not really one of the subjects that I was doing at the time. But I realized that you can still pursue a career in that field, irrespective of. In actual fact, one had an advantage because some of the subjects that we were exposed to in our, first year were just the core, BSc module. So I'm sharing this with you to say that also it's something that you may need to consider once you've graduated from Unisa, just to go back and say, these are the paths that you can follow, to some of the learners where you come from. So I opted for agriculture economics, and I applied to a couple of universities, including Stellenbosch at the time, and a couple responded. But come January, I had to just evaluate and realize that I couldn't meet the requirement for Stellenbosch at the time. And I went to University of Limpopo just to check for space. At the time they used to have a term called the walk-in. I don't know if we still have it now. So you just go there, you queue, and then you consider any of the programs that are available for you to study. I went to University of Limpopo, and I remember I applied for nutrition at the time. It was early in January. And luckily, because I still had contacts with France, which really played a critical role in terms of what career path I had to follow. And he said I can still go to the University of Forte. Luckily, he went to Forte. He still had contacts there. And when he checked with them, he realized that there's still space for this field that I want to follow. And I ended up finding myself in the Eastern Cape at the time. I must say that other than through, the trips that we get to get ourselves involved in our high schools, I had never really been outside of my province for any other reason. So for me to move all the way to the Eastern Cape was really, quite tricky. The Eastern Cape, as you may know, they speak predominantly close at that side, and I had to learn the language. And I'm proud to say, they are Teta, and I can get to speak to the people from that side with the languages that they were, with the native languages from the Eastern Cape. And luckily at the time, you could still apply for NSFAS even earlier in the year. So I applied for NSFAS. I also applied for a bursary offered by the Department of Agriculture in the Eastern Cape, and I was accepted. And I've since been studying using those avenues. Unfortunately, and maybe this could be something that a student at Unisa can be familiar with, I couldn't get a residence or admitted for resident at the time. It was quite limited. So I was adopted by a family, the Mkiva family in the Eastern Cape. That is the family that I stayed with. And they really played quite a huge role in my career. And later on, I stayed with the Mtegeso family until I graduated. Post my graduation, I realized, hence I started with the code of, starting with the end in mind, that where is it that I want to get in my agriculture economics career? And I realized that if you look at the agricultural field, a majority of people who are in this field are really white African speaking people. Then I thought, I may need to also explore institutions where you predominantly find this a category of people. And I thought, maybe let me explore the University of Stellenbosch for my postgrad. And luckily, they accepted me. And post my graduation at Fort Hare, I went to the University of Stellenbosch for my postgrad, and I got in there. It was quite a different environment altogether. Resource-wise, compared to University of Fort Hare. And I remember at the time I thought maybe it's something that I may need to share with my lecturers back at the University of Fort Hare, that maybe there's a need for interactions between the universities, because when you get there, I mean, the labs, the computer labs were there, any resource that you need compared to where one was at Fort Hare. But also, as we were doing what we called seminars at the time, we do scientific writing. We used to quote a whole lot of professors from the University of Stellenbosch. And for me, having to interact with these people, physically, it was quite inspiring. You read a book written by a person and you get to interact with them. It's something that really also impact on you, and I think at the same time, it's something that you may need to consider. Maybe at this point, I need to share that for me to be able to go to Stellenbosch, I was assisted by a bursary offered by Cape Wool's SA and Santam. I also went for interviews for that bursary, and luckily they, approved my bursary, and it was through that I was able to go to the University of Stellenbosch. I must say that their fees are quite steep, and if it wasn't for those bursaries, I don't think I would have been able to enroll at that institution. And if you see there in the bottom, I'm sharing with you that I also did some part-time job. When I got that side, they had an office which was assisting students that were struggling financially. But for you to be assisted, you have to sort of dedicate a certain amount of time, 20 hours per week. Was it per week? No, rather per month. In doing any other job, so they couldn't just give you support financially for free. So you pick any other thing that you can do. And luckily, Stellenbosch University is quite intertwined with the town of Stellenbosch. So you can do any other thing within the town, including working at a retail or any other space that you wanted to work in. So I realized that I struggle a lot when it comes to IT related, because at the time one was not really exposed to your laptops as we have them now. And there was an institution that was responsible for assisting students with IT. So I went there and shared with them the form that I would like to volunteer my time here, but you won't be paying me. Instead, the office will be paying me. And they agreed, and I went in with no clue about what's going on with in relation to IT. But over time, I was able to learn a whole lot. To this day, I don't really need IT specialists for me to do a whole lot in relation to computers. You may wonder, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this so that, as a student, you don't just look at what you're studying as the only thing that, it will enable you to get somewhere. This is something that I also have on my CV, and it has played a huge advantage for me. They also had an opportunity for what they call the door watchers at ladies' residences. So we also explored that. I remember that majority of Black students will do that kind of job, and it supplemented one's income to a point that you can even send some money back home. So post that, as part of the requirement for Cape Wool's, Cape Wool's is a trust responsible for the levies that are charged in the wool space. They offered you a sponsorship, but one of the requirements is that you need to work in the industry for at least the number of years that they've supported you. So I will encourage you also to apply for such sponsorship that will require you to work in the space, meaning that they will assist you to identify a company that you can work for after they've assisted you with this bursary. So in 2011, after my honors, after graduating from my honors, I enrolled also for my master's. But at the same time, the demand in terms of, the financial demands back home was quite steep. My siblings also had to go to tertiary institutions. So I realized that it's about time that I look for a job. And as a result, I wrote to Cape Wool's, and they identified a number of companies that I need to be in touch with, shared with me the contact details. And I researched about them. I realized BKB is one of the big, wool handling companies, and I wrote to them. They invited me for interviews, and I started working for BKB. So luckily they had a branch in Paarl in the Western Cape, closer to the Stellenbosch. So I started working there in their grain division. It was quite an exposure. I mean, for most of, I think, Black people, the only exposure we have in terms of agriculture is the 3 goats, the 10 cattle that we see within the communal operation. And for me, being exposed to, the grain division of BKB was quite an honor, and I mean, they were doing also silo storage. I interacted with the traders also in that grain division of Paarl. So it was quite an exposure. And as part of the graduate program, one had to spend about 3 months in one division, another in one. So I spent 6 in grain division, and I joined the wool and mohair division in the then Port Elizabeth, now Gqeberha. I also, got exposed to the livestock division, where we were doing livestock auctioning. We traveled around the whole Eastern Cape, part of the Free State and Northern Cape, doing auctions in different farms. It was really, really a great exposure, I must say. I forgot to include, or here it is, the agri division also, the agri-finance division, where, we were approving the financial facilities. So one was able to see, the financials of the farmers who were applying for funding within BKB. You get to see, how big these projects are, in terms of the farms that BKB was engaging with. And as part of the work that I was doing while I was in PE, I will also tutor, coincidentally, students from Unisa in the areas of QMI, BNU, economics, decision science, and statistics. Majority of students who are doing your higher certificates tend to struggle a lot when it comes to your QMI and BNU, and I was happy to really help them. But then over time, I realized that I need to grow. And one of the limiting factor, I think generally also in the agriculture sector, is that you need to speak Afrikaans. It's quite unfortunate, and I'm hoping that over time, it's something that we need to get rid of, because I think you can function if you can speak English and any other South African language. And unfortunately, this becomes quite a limiting factor for most of the graduates in the agriculture space. So even for me, working for BKB, as part of the graduate program, is that you need to identify a space where you're going to dedicate yourself full time. So I was attracted to the grain division. I thought I can do a trading of grain, but I realized that every time they advertise in the Afrikaans languages, a bigger requirement. Very understandable, because majority of farmers that you'll be engaging with, whom BKB was handling their grain, were Afrikaans speaking. So unfortunately, I couldn't really get a full-time job in the areas that I was interested in. That's when then I started, searching for employment elsewhere. I tried in a traditional way of following the adverts, that are shared on newspapers and all that. I realized it's not working. I started identifying companies that I wanted to work for. And I realized that I want to work for, either commodity groups, which I'll share with you later on, or organized agriculture, your Agri-SA and the likes. So I will identify a number of people within their board structure. If you go to their website on Contact Us, they'll share the leadership structure. So I'll go straight, look for the email addresses of those leadership structures, write to them, this is my name, this is my background, attached is my CV, I'm interested to work for your company. And luckily, the general manager of NERPO replied, positively. I remember I was still tutoring my student in an economics class, the Unisa student, when he phoned me, took a call. I realized is the general manager of NERPO. It was really sort of a life-changing call, to went outside of the class. And he shared with me the good news that they want me to join them as soon as possible here in Pretoria. And when I came back into the class, I couldn't, hide this with my students. And I remember having to share with them that I'm very excited, even though it means, the end of the road for us. But I'll be in Pretoria. This is how I got to join the organized agriculture. So I joined NERPO, only to find that NERPO is working with the FASA closely, and eventually, starting working at the FASA, the African Farmers Association of South Africa. NERPO is a commodity group, or the National Emergent Red Meat Producers Organization. So through FASA and NERPO, one was exposed to sort of every corner in terms of the agriculture sector. That's no place one has not been to, including engagements with the ministers, engagement with the agricultural portfolio in Parliament, being part of the Agri-BEE Council member, your Section 7 reports that are done by the National Agriculture Marketing Council, including radio interviews and TV interviews. You may search my name there on YouTube. You'll see some of the interviews one has been able to do. And currently, one is still serving as the ministerial trustee, representing the minister in the Maize Trust. So in a nutshell, that has been really my journey. And currently, I've just joined the National Agricultural Marketing Council. Maybe you may just bear with me. I know time may not necessarily be on our side, just to explain a little bit that this is really one of the key institutions in the agricultural sector in this manner. You need to appreciate that South Africa prior to 1994 was operating in a protectionist kind of economy, where it's quite closed, and they had what they call the control boards, meaning that as a farmer, as you're planting, you will know what price are you going to sell your product at. So it's the opposite of a free market economy. And also in terms of the subsidy, the sector was quite heavily subsidized, and farmers were protected to make sure that they make money. And there was this control boards through which you can only sell your product, your agricultural products. If you are in the grain, you can only sell your grain product through either a maize control board or a sorghum control board, and so on and so on. So post 1994, South Africa decided that they are going to enter a different trajectory altogether that is aligned to democracy. And as a result, the Marketing Act 47 of 1996 was, promulgated, and the control boards were now replaced by the agricultural industry trusts. So for every commodity, I think there are about 11 industry trusts, including the maize one that I'm serving in. The Cape Wools is the one that I've shared with you earlier on. That's a whole range. So the NMC is now given the responsibility to oversee all these industry trusts. So all the assets that we're sitting with those control boards are now sitting with the industry trusts. And as per the mandate of the trust deeds, the trust can only use, the interest earned from those assets to make sure that the agricultural sector continue to be competitive. So as a result, there are different bodies that are put together to see to it that, the industry continue to be competitive. So it's through this trust that all the commodity groups in the sector, you will hear about your grain SA, your potato SA, we've just spoken about your Cape Wool's and the likes, that they are able to operate as a result of this trust. So the trust funds all those commodity groups so that they can be able to support the farmers, to also market, the agricultural products out there in other countries, to penetrate different markets. So my role also is in alignment with this that I've just shared. And most importantly, to see to it that we bring more Black players in the agricultural sector, enhance the agricultural transformation, but also that we generate some, intelligence to generate some knowledge so that we can advise the minister in terms of the direction of the sector and how the country can sort of position itself. So as I conclude, I want to just share with you some of the areas where you can, explore as an agriculture economist or a player or in the agricultural space, be it an animal specialist, a plant production specialist, companies to work for. You can either work for government, obviously the Department of Agriculture, either at national, at provincial, at district level, including municipality level. Now these two departments have been separated. You can also work for your land reform and rural development. But also you can become an extension officer. There's people who interact with farmers on the ground. You can work for the company I work for, the National Agriculture Marketing Council, or your PPECB, which is Cape Town based, responsible for exports. You can either work for ARC, the Agriculture Research Council, or DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Cooperation there, or ITAC, which is responsible for the exports, or the Competition Commission, Provincial Economic Development. You know that by each province has their own economic development. In Limpopo, we have what is called the leader, Limpopo economic development. All the other provinces will have, Eastern Cape, they have the ECDC. All the other provinces will have their own, named after their provinces. Can also work for Treasury, your Department of Water and Sanitation. As you may know, that agriculture depends a lot on water. You can work for the SMMEs, for CEDA, for COCTA, for DECO, Parliament, or CSIR. It goes on and on. But also you can work in the bank space. We have, what we call the development finance institutions, which are mainly state-owned, your Land Bank, IDC, CIFA, and DBSA, including, I think, Itala. But you can also work in the commercial banking space. They borrow, farmers a whole lot of money, annually. Your Standard Bank, your Nedbank, your ABSA. Those are some of the companies you can work for. But also, most importantly, the biggest, absorber of agriculture graduates are your commodity groups or farmer organizations. For each commodity, it's a farmer organization or a commodity group that is responsible for that commodity. In the poultry space, they'll have SAPA, the South African Poultry Association. In the red meat, they have RPO and the Red Meat Industry Services. In the wine, that's Wine SA, excuse me. There's also AFASA, there's, Agri SA with their provincial structures, including AFASA with their own provincial structures. There's also AGBIS, Food SA, Hot Grow, responsible for the fruits, Citrus Fruit Growers Association, including your grain. There are so many. So these are the companies that you can look at, you know, to explore for job opportunities in the agri-business space. This corporations majority, including the company I work for, BKB, the TWK, insurance providers, Senvest, GWK, Alzus, and the likes. So these are the sort of the companies that you can check if you are looking to be employed in the sector. Earlier on, when I started the engagement, I indicated that there's a lot that goes into a person for you to succeed in whatever that you do. And unfortunately, some of us, we come from an environment where we're likely to be the second or the third, you know, graduate in the family. You don't really have a reference point in terms of advice that you can get, you know, from family. In most cases, they can just tell you work hard without giving you a direction in which direction you can work hard towards. So for me, other than the exposure one has had through, you know, our sisters and brothers like Umamashu in the community, I've heavily relied on reading. I've heavily relied on listening to talk show, listen to SAFM, and maybe less of your Metro FM, listen to Power FM, you know, and recently there are these podcasts that, you know, are just so many. The platforms are so many that can guide you to direct your career path towards the channel that you want to direct them to. So for me, it has always been about identifying a role model or a company maybe I want to work for, and try to search more or know more about that company. I mean, and my exposure, for instance, in the IT space has made me get too exposed to Steve Jobs to a point that I had to read his book. It's one of the books that I can recommend to everyone to just have a look at. The guy behind Apple, where he started and where he is now. You know, other books include your fictions. I indicated that I'm involved in politics as well. I get to read about biographies of our leaders. I have Ndatemusubudi Mangena here, the Azabo president. His book here, he's got a couple of other books that I've read, which are quite inspirational. They will make you appreciate where we come from, you know, that the things we have, you know, that we take for granted really come a long way. In the agriculture space, for those who are in agriculture economics, the journal that you can get to read and see what the people in your space get involved in, it's your Agricon. And also you can have a look into your Farmers Weekly and Food from Zanzi, where I get to make a lot of contribution on African Farming Magazine as well. I think they've got a TV show on I think Mzansi Magic, one of the channels there. There's also an organization called BFAP, the Bureau for Food and Agriculture, you know, products. They get to share the baseline, quite insightful information there in terms of the agriculture sector. You know, the figures there in terms of where we're going when it comes to agriculture. But also within the NMC, there are quite a number of other publications that we do, including the Agripreneur, so that you get to learn about the entrepreneurs that are in the agriculture sector, but also around the reports in terms of the trends in the sector. And there are self-help books, you know, just so that you're able to channel the energy in you, you know, the Atomic Habits, Brian Hash. I used to listen to Brian Hash a lot on SAFM to a point that I had to buy his book. He's a financial advisor. And if you need to be advised in terms of finance, that is the book for you, including the one by Warren Ingram. And one other important book for me is The Positive Thinking by Vera Pfeiffer. Unfortunately, you can't find it anywhere. I don't know if through Amazon you can be able to get it. I think it's quite a small book, which really for me made quite a huge impact in my life. and there are the other books that you can get to get your hands on. But lastly, and most importantly, we tend to lock ourselves in the corners or in the comfort zone. I will encourage you to be part of engagements of this nature, but also your farmers' days, your agriculture conferences. You can look at the program for people that inspire you, people that you want to associate with, and go to that conference for the purpose of engaging with that specific person. After the presentation, make sure that you meet them, indicate what you liked about their presentation, and say where you come from and that you are interested to work for this and that company or their company. How should you be positioned? You'll be surprised that sometimes you can even land a job without going through an interview, like I did with my NERPO job. Colleagues, I know that was quite a mouthful, but I thought let me share what I can. And I think at this point, maybe we can open for engagement. Thank you for lending me your ear, for listening to my story. There could be one or two things that you can get from my story. Maybe it's a story that you're familiar with. But yeah, that's me. That's my phone number there. That's my email address. You can have them. But please just drop a WhatsApp message. Phone calls, in most cases, we are in meetings, and it becomes quite difficult to cope with phone calls. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Malapane. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. But I think also particularly the encouragement in terms of, instead of sitting at your desk or in the corner, as you mentioned it, to get out there and start engaging with people to get the information that you need to plot your career path. If there is anybody in the call who would like to ask a live question to Mr. Tamaka, please just raise your hand, then I will open the microphone for you. While you are still thinking about the questions that you might have for him, or if you would like to ask a live question, I just wanted to check with you in the agriculture sector, are there specific, for example, professional organizations in addition to those you mentioned in your slide about the possible companies to work for, that you think would be useful for students also to explore? Malapane?
Thank you for that question. There are quite a number of organizations. I think that students they are not necessarily in your union format. For instance, each profession or area of specialty, they will group themselves according to, for instance, where I'm an agriculture economist, we have what we call ISA, Agriculture Economics Association of South Africa. That's where, professionals in the agriculture economics get to convene annually. For instance, now we have a conference in PE, now in Kabeja. Just so we can share some of the work that we have done in the past year, and it get published also in Agricon. It's quite a very professional space, and now I'll assume that in the extension also they have their own journal, and I know that they also have those annual engagements and animal science as well, and so on and so on. So I think those are the bodies that students can familiarize themselves with. But also for farmers, there are farmer organizations that if you are an aspiring farmer, you can also associate with, including the commodity groups that I've just shared with you now here. And that's where you get, first-hand information in relation to whatever commodity that you're interested in. and also get to interact with people who are in that space that you may work with. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much. So again, just in terms of expanding your network, and as you're doing your online searches, look up the organizations that was shared. I've shared images of those slides in the chat, so that you can also just expand your understanding of the different opportunities. Okay, I don't see any hands or specific questions in the chat, but I have another question that I want to ask you. In terms of agricultural economics itself, would you mind just sharing a bit about when you were studying this degree at undergraduate level and honors level? What are the kind of subjects that you learned about in your degree? How did the different subject works? Was the focus more on the economics part, or on the agriculture, or how was it put together?
Yeah, thank you for that. In the agriculture economic space, I think you get many fields within that. You get people who do a BSc agriculture economics, which I have done. You get those who do BCom agriculture economics, which will be more inclined to economic side. You also get those who are doing a B, agriculture economics. So the difference there is it's mainly about some of the core subject. In the BSc agriculture economics, there's serious emphasis around the science, especially at your first year level. For instance, we had to do chemistry, your physical science, your statistics, at the first year level. But post that, then you get introduced to your agricultural modules, your intro to animal science, intro to plant science, intro to agrimeteorology, and so on. But in general, this is an economics field with speciality in agriculture. So you get your transport economics, and so on, or international trade economics. But for this one, it's an economics in the field of agriculture. And the good thing about it is that it's so broad that out of the field, you can either become a farm manager, you can become an agricultural specialist in a bank where you interact with farmers who are interested to get finance from a bank. You can become an extension officer as well. You may work as I shared in my first slide. But also as you move along, there's a serious emphasis around research, and you do your econometrics, which will help you when it comes to doing scientific research. And I guess also depending on where your interest is in terms of majors, can either major in agricultural finance, major in your core micro and macro economics or international trade, depending on what your interests generally are. There's also a book that I forgot to share here that is quite important for those who are interested in the field, the Finance and Farmers, or Farmers and Finance. I can't remember which comes first. It's done by Standard Bank. It's quite also a useful book when it comes to the agriculture economics field. So those are some of the modules that you get exposed to. I know that there's some interest in bringing some more other modules that speaks to the current time where we are. Things are changing. We may not necessarily work on the same or approach the program in the same way that we've approached it in the past. We are in an AI space. We're in the space of drones, technology is really taking over. And therefore, the field also needs to be up to date with the current developments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the absence of any other questions or raised hands, you mentioned now the impact of technology, on the agriculture field, and specifically talked about, for example, drones and AI. Would you mind just sharing a bit about, what you've seen in the past couple of years, how things are changing and what your advice would be for students? Because as we know, curriculums don't always keep up with the latest developments. So how could you prepare yourself for opportunities as these have been brought about by the impact of technology?
Yes, thanks for that question. I think it's always good from time to time for one to do those short courses. They really come in very handy. We, for instance, operating in an environment where we are impacted by climate change, and therefore familiarizing yourselves with anything related to climate, operating in an environment that is impacted by climate change. How do you farm sustainably? How do you ensure that in whatever that you do, you reduce your carbon emission and things like that? So short courses, and I'm happy that Unisa get to offer those short courses in relation to that specific area, because once you have established yourself with your core area, you can always borrow. In one of the slides I shared, for instance, corporate governance, because in the area where I operate, I realize that understanding your King 4, your King 5 is quite important. And therefore, one has to explore a short course in that area so that in the advisory that you provide, at least is informed by also the theory that goes behind your corporate governance, or your company act related matters. So I'll say a short course here and there is quite helpful. We for instance have AgriSeta that get to offer those short courses, your skills program, and also learnerships in different areas of speciality. We also just had a session yesterday in the Maize Trust in relation to transformation, to say that when we have always focused on primary production, meaning supporting Black farmers along the value chain in terms of the professionals that want to come in and become silo managers, or traders of grain. What is it that we are doing? And I think going forward, we are exploring those opportunities of bringing graduates in those spaces, obviously in partnership with your AgriSetas and the likes, so that young graduates also get opportunities in those fields. So short courses is quite an answer, but also keeping up, with your agriculture magazine. And now they're also available online. For instance, your Food from Mzansi, it's very prominent online. Your African Farming magazine is there also online, so that you get to see what are the trends, what is happening, what is new, and then you can explore further. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you also, Zanele. You shared with us in the chat about the NDPWI and AgriSeta, which implemented an artisan development program for a period of 3 years. So it's quite
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So thank you very much also for sharing that. Again, it comes back to what you mentioned in your talk about really just staying connected and staying ahead of all the developments that are going on, and as you do your networking, also asking these kind of questions to help guide you in terms of what you could be focusing on to prepare yourself for opportunities in the future. Okay, so our second speaker from the South African National Biodiversity Institute, he indicated that he should be joining us at about, at the latest, 12:30. So I thought what we will do in the meantime is just to check, Mr. Tamaga, are you going to stay on for the call, or do you need to leave to attend to other meetings or responsibilities?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm gonna have to leave.
Okay.
I left a meeting so I can be here, and I need to go and rejoin. I'm sorry about that, but I can be here until 12:30 need be.
Okay.
For
Not a problem.
those engagements. Yeah. I'm worried about the lack of engagement from the guys who are joining us here. I'm wondering if it's because they are muted here, because it's always good to be interactive with the younger guys, and maybe those who are responsible for the settings. You can just unmute them so that we get to engage maybe for the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay, thank you very much. I've opened up all the microphones. So as I indicated, you're welcome to raise your hand and ask a question, or maybe just, as a way of introduction, what you are busy studying, and what year you are in, just for us to also get to know you. If you have any specific questions for Mr. Tamaga, you're welcome to ask that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, in order just for us to be able to release you, Becky, would you mind just doing the thank you from our side, and then we will just have a few announcements, and hopefully by then our second speaker have joined us. I saw a hand now, but it disappeared. You're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, guest speakers and everyone. My name is Michael Chimbila. I'm studying a BCom Supply Chain and Operations Management. And yeah, I've also done a certificate in banking, and I thought this was quite a useful talk to listen to. I'm currently trying to see what career paths are there, and one of the options is being a commodity trading in commodities. So I just wanted to ask, like, how can I get involved in that? Done a bit of research there, and they speak of how if I can get a hold of a farmer and get his product or maize and then find it trading, how would I go about that?
Thank you very much, Michael. Mr. Tamaga, would you mind just commenting, what are some of the things that one could think about as you're starting out on that journey?
Thank you for that important question, Dr. Michael, and for your bravery. I see you've opened for others to ask questions. There's an organization called SACOTA. I just forgot what it stands for, but they're responsible for the trading of agricultural product. There, I'm just gonna type it also, SACOTA, so that you can indulge with. But also there's an organization called Grain SA, which is also responsible for the grain. And it's interesting that you're getting in the path that one was interested in, at the time. And also it was quite a bit challenging as per what I've shared earlier on. We also have SAGRA. This is a Black farmers organization. It's handling the grain for mainly your previously disadvantaged guys. I think getting in touch with those organizations could be very, very helpful for you to penetrate that space. I've shared my email address, and I think you can feel free also to write to me so that I can link you with the people responsible there. It's always easier. People are quite responsive when they speak to a person that they're familiar with. So feel free to drop me an email address with what you have just requested, and let's see what can work in that regard. Thank you, Nat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Michael. I see Majaji, your hand is up. You're also welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Good day, everybody. I'm Majaji, studying agricultural management in Unisa, and my question is more of a mental question, since knowing that agriculture is a sector that is not just male dominated but white male dominated. I want to know, like, how does one as a woman face the pressure that we get undermined as women when we start working in these the agricultural environments, especially like on field. I feel like office work is much more easier, but like when we're out in the field, we tend to face a lot of pressure from the locals. So how does one deal with that?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Tamako, if you could perhaps comment if there are specific just advice that you would want to share, or maybe there are specific organizations that could also be helpful.
No, thank you for that. It's quite an important question. I know you're quite correct. Traditionally, agriculture has always been a male-dominated field. The advice I can give is always good to identify, fellow professionals who are female in the space. I think they may likely be able to be in a better position to guide in that regard. It's always good to speak to someone about the challenges that you're facing, so that you understand how they were able to overcome them. Hence it's always important. We emphasize it a lot that in leadership positions there has to always be a mix. Diversity of leaders, so that those who understand where a lady will come from, and the challenges that ladies may face, they can be able to bring them to the fore. So the little advice I can give is that engage with any lady in the space that you are in. If you are a farmer or an aspiring young farmer, I'll say to you that there are a whole lot of opportunities for young people, in particular female, who are interested in farming. And therefore, given my background of working with farm organizations who are advocating for previously disadvantaged, I could easily sort of link you with the right person, depending on where you are in that regard. So speaking to someone is always the best. That's the short and long of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Becky, I'm going to ask you if you could just do the thank you.
Lisa, before maybe I do a thank you, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Tamaka. He spoke about climate change. I would like to know, what has it impacted in our agricultural sector? What is the impact of climate change in the agricultural sector in South Africa?
Yeah, thank you for that important question. If you, for instance, where I come from, we grew up the fields being green year in and year out. But over time, even the communal farmers were discouraged because the rainfall has not been as it used to, and also typically in terms of the planting season, farmers generally used to start planting from as early as September. But you realize that our rains, we get our rains very late in the year. As a result, our planting season get to start somewhere in December, for those who are lucky. That is the impact of the climate change. And unfortunately, they also finishes early, around February, you are likely to receive your last rain. It means that your crop only had about 3 months for it to get to maturity stage, or for it to get an opportunity to get some form of water. So that is quite a big challenge. And as a result, there's been quite a serious investment towards, cultivars or seed cultivars that are able to, mature quite faster. And you also notice that we've been experiencing a lot of floods. The KZN area, it's one such example. And it's because of this, the climate change that we are experiencing, including some drought. We had an early summer drought somewhere towards the end of the year and early in the year. And it really impacted in terms of the yields that farmers have experienced for their 2023-2024 crop. So those are some of the impacts, and you feel them if you are a farmer, especially if you don't have reserves, and all you've put about 1 million or 2 million into the fields, and you experience a drought. It means all that 2 million that you've put in the fields is gone, just like that, wiped out. And that is quite a serious matter. There have been some innovation around how that can be countered, including the insurance guys looking into what is called weather-based index insurance. An insurance that kicks in by virtue of the weather environment. But we haven't really moved as adequately as we should in that regard. And lastly, in summer, you realize that there are many heat waves that we experience. And if you are into cash crops or your vegetable crops, if that heat wave hits you or your farm, whatever that you had on the field, get damaged. And those are the results or the risks of being in the farming space. So as a result, you realize that farmers have been investing a lot into tunnels, also to avert hail. Farmers have been investing a lot into irrigation to make sure that should the rain not, be sufficient, then they are able to irrigate. That is a cost. And it also reduces the margins. If you were to make, say, 5 rand for every, or 10 rand for every ton, now it get reduced to far lower than that. Those are the challenges in relation to climate change. Hence, we need Unisa to produce more and more graduates who can be able to assist our farmers to counter, such challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tamaha. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you for sharing your story, insight, your experiences with us. It is without no doubt that your expertise and advice have enlightened and inspired our students, giving them a clear vision of their future career path. We deeply appreciate your effort in guiding and motivating our students. Your presentation was incredibly informative, inspiring, providing us with a wealth of knowledge about careers in agriculture and environmental sciences, and providing advice on spurring there's opportunities within those sectors. Once again, thank you, Mr. Tamaga. Your presentation was very inspiring and insightful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky, and thank you very much, Mr. Tamaga, for making the time to be here today. We will release you to attend to the other meeting, but we really do appreciate your patience also in terms of answering the questions. I certainly learned a lot about agricultural economics, but also more broadly, the different opportunities available in agriculture. Okay, so while we are waiting for Sanbi to join us, we will just, or I'm just going to share some resources with you or information about how you can do further research related to your field of study. Specifically, we have a brochure called Agriculture at Unisa. And basically what we try to do with these career brochures that are available on our download section of our website is to provide a broad overview of different fields of study and how you could do research to help you prepare for future career as well as study opportunities. So in the Agriculture at Unisa brochure, we talk about, for example, the different job titles that you could explore, but we also mentioned some of the impacts that we spoke about this morning. For example, technology, the environmental change, sustainability, and so forth. So please feel free to also go and download that. A big part of the brochure is also then to guide you in terms of doing further research. So you probably heard this morning, again, the emphasis on the importance of networking. So as you are planning, to prepare for your assignments and the exams, also think about how you could make time to start connecting with other people and going through publications such as this one to help you manage your career. Excuse me. Then we also have a brochure called Environmental Careers at Unisa. So it's similar in terms of its outline to the agriculture brochure. In this brochure, we specifically then look at the different kinds of environmental careers. We look at the difference between, for example, the more social aspect of environmental management, but also the natural sciences aspect. So depending on the kind of degree that you're studying or that you're thinking about studying, you'll be able to see where you might be able to fit in. Because with environmental careers, it's quite multidisciplinary. There's a lot of different opportunities that you could explore. So we also invite you to download this brochure and use it as part of your preparation and your journey in terms of exploring the different opportunities. Then there are two brochures that are more focused on preparing you for these opportunities. The first one is called the Grad Next brochure, or it's actually a book. It's available free of charge. We've provided a download link as well as the code for you to scan to access the book. Basically, in the book, it covers topics such as financial management, personal branding, also preparing for interviews, writing CVs and cover letters, job searching, as well as networking. So also a lot of valuable information that you can use in your planning for your next steps. And then similar to the Grad Next brochure book, there's also a PNET grad pack that was released this year. And basically, they are focusing also on the CV and interview tips. They speak about the role of social media in terms of your online brand, as well as answering questions around, for example, what are employers looking for in graduates, what you could expect in the recruitment process, salary negotiations, and also creating a compelling CV. So the PNET grad pack together with the grad next brochure will certainly guide you, in addition to you, for example, attending sessions such as the one we are having right now.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of time, I'll just introduce Tebogo as Tebogo Mataba, and he is working for SANBI, and the rest I'll leave it to him to introduce himself further, just in the interest of time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, Tebogo, to our virtual program.
Good afternoon, everybody. A great pleasure to be joining you in this virtual program. Sorry, Lisa and Hazel, for having created some level of anxiety about you not seeing me coming into the session. Once more, as I said, it's a great pleasure and an honor to be participating in this career event around environmental science. I joined last year, and it was quite a great pleasure because sometimes when we give these presentations, two things that we assume is, one is we are just doing it and assuming that people will just listen and then move on. And then the second thing is when you share your contact details, and then you just think people will just look at your contact details and that's it. But I need to give feedback, and I've held on to this feedback up to this day, to say, after the presentation I did last year, and I was sitting down in the rural KwaZulu-Natal, there was quite a number of your students that have been in touch, not only with me, but even with some of my colleagues in the institutions, trying to take advantage of the opportunities that are available with the institution. So it really is a great pleasure to see that there are people who listen and really take forward the whatever we give to them. I'm going to try and share my presentation, and I will switch on my camera in the meantime, but I'll bring it on when we get into the question and answer sessions. Yeah, so I've termed this presentation Biodiversity is Live, and it's quite a bit of a rhetoric question if you say biodiversity is live, because biodiversity is about life. But I want my mission for this program is to bring out the life in terms of careers, in terms of our future in biodiversity. And I'll be calling this, the subtitle being My Future Career at SANBI. I'm not here to come and promise you jobs, but I'm here to come and promise you that in the environmental sector, there is a future in SANBI for you, should you explore whatever opportunities that are in existence. So SANBI is an entity that is under the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, with our vision being biodiversity is conserved and enhanced to deliver sustainable benefits for all. Again, our mission is to provide leadership, as the leader of biodiversity research, policy advice, conservation, human capital development, which is why I come and do this presentation. And all this is to promote the appreciation, the sustainable use, the equitable sharing of the benefits for South Africa's biodiversity. Now, our mandate as SANBI is to explore, reveal, celebrate, and champion biodiversity for the benefits of enjoyment of all South Africans. And this we do through our botanical gardens and the National Zoo, using them as the window to South Africa's biodiversity. Maybe let me spend a little bit of few seconds on this mandate. So we explore, we go into the South Africa's natural areas to go and do research on the biodiversity. We reveal that through the publications that we have, through the reports that we produce, through the information that we put on social media or any other platform, and then we celebrate it. We celebrate it by making sure that all South Africans benefit from it. We champion it because we get the South Africans to sustain it, to conserve it, to look after it. We are an entity that was established in 2004 through the signing of the National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act 10 of 2004. So that's the law that manages us. As SANBI, we are located in botanical gardens. And if you look at that map, you will see all the different botanical gardens that are represented throughout the country. We are represented in Limpopo, in the Thohoyandou Botanical Garden, in Gauteng, in the Pretoria and the Walter Sisulu Botanical Garden. I'm based at the Pretoria Botanical Garden. We are in Mpumalanga, in Nelspruit at the Lowveld Botanical Garden. We're in KZN at the KZN National Botanical Garden, which is in Pietermaritzburg. We are in the Free State, in Bloemfontein. We have a garden in Eastern Cape, the Kwelecha National Botanical Garden. We have a garden in the Northern Cape, in Hantam, in a place called Nieuwoudsville. We have 3 botanical gardens in the Western Cape, the Karoo Desert Botanical Garden, the Harold Potter Botanical Garden, and the Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden. Then, just recently, this is just over 5 years ago, we have taken the management of the National Zoological Garden in Pretoria, and we have a little conservation area up in Mukopani, which is a small Anyana zoo, so to speak. So this is where we are, and this is where we do our work. What is SANBI's work? What does SANBI do? So we put this in this pyramid, and each thing connects to the other. So we've got the Foundation for Biodiversity, which is where we have the collections of our plants in the botanical gardens, our plants in the nurseries, and also our plants in the National Herbarium, where the science, the botanical or taxonomy work is done. Our animals that are in the zoos, we do the taxonomy work, we do the inventory. Out of this work, we produce maps, and we do a lot of classification of ecosystems and species. That is the Foundation for Biodiversity. And then that all connects to building biodiversity knowledge. Like I told you, we produce a lot of publications that will talk about the status of the biodiversity, the assessments that we do the modeling and the monitoring of the biodiversity, and that because we have started with our foundation there. And then all of that gets to inform the science, policy, and the action. So whatever scientific action, whatever scientific policy that is produced, all of that is done based on the research that we do that. And all of it goes as an influence to human well-being and delivery of service and job creation. And again, like I said in my earlier slide, we do all of that based in botanical gardens and the zoo, and we contribute to human capital development. So one can ask a question: all this work that we do in SANBI, in our botanical gardens and our zoo and our herbariums, what does it contribute in terms of jobs? So how many jobs are created? I'm not going to read that, but you can see that through protecting of biodiversity, we have jobs. Through restoring of ecological infrastructure, we have jobs. through biodiversity-based tourism and recreation. We have jobs. I'm in that sector in my work. We do a lot of work in infrastructure use for biodiversity. So that's the contribution. So more than 418,000 biodiversity related jobs that are created, and all of them created at different levels. These are not only just your sophisticated scientific work that is done, but also very ordinary, your EPWP work is also counted in all of that. These are what are the critical environmental jobs that at the moment, as a country, as a sector, we have very little of. We have very little geologists. We have very little people who do work on climate change. We have very little zoologists, conservation scientists, and I'm not saying conservation officers, I'm saying conservation scientists. There's very little oceanographers and hydrologists. And all these are critical because there's a lot of work that needs to be done around water. You know the water situation in our country. There's a lot of work that needs to be done around the sea, our seas, the oceans, the sustainability around our oceans. There's a lot of challenges that we have in conservation areas. And of course, I don't think I need to say it so much about the work that needs to be done around climate change, and how do we adapt, how do we survive the climate change issues that we as a country are going through. So these are critical jobs that I think as you continue to study in the environmental science, you need to look at a way of how you can come into the sector and contribute in these ones. Now, here are the careers that are there in SENB, and I've put them in different categories, just for you to see where you would fit in. So there's the biodiversity research and assessment band, where we have botanists, we have some scientists, we have one or two climate change adaptation officers. We're doing some work around alien invasive. We growing the GIS work. We have quite a big number of work that is done around biodiversity stewardship. You know, people who look after the biodiversity, but using the sign, using the communities, and capacitating the communities. We need science communicators. We've just now started to doing quite a lot of work around marine biology and hydrology. So these are the jobs that are there in SENB. Of course, you would need to have environmental management or nature conservation, studied marine biology and hydrology in order to be able to get into those jobs. And at the end of the presentation, I will tell you how do you access these jobs. Then there's the conservation garden band, horticulturists, plant sales, plant nursery managers, seed collectors. We have a very big program that we're doing with the UK around collection of seeds and storing them in seed banks. Environmental education officers, people like myself, ecologists, animal attendants, veterinaries, nurses, and zoologists. And again, there are the different courses that one will need to follow in order to be able to join SENB in those fields. Then there's the biosystematic collections. These are the people who work in our herbarium, who go around the country collecting these plants, storing them in a herbarium, following proper processes of doing it, doing the taxonomy and the genetic work in it. And of course, all this research, I'm excited to say a lot of the work that we do in our herbarium is used worldwide. We get quite a lot of scientists who come and use our collections to do work. So of course you would have had to study botany, natural sciences, degrees in genetics, in chemistry, and in biology. Then there's the biodiversity information and policy advice. Sometimes we, as scientists, we can do all this science, but we need people who will be able to use the science to communicate, to inform policy formulation, to do a lot of compliance, and the safety around those things. So these are some of the careers that are available in SENBI that people can explore. SENBI has a student program where we provide students with practical experience or on-job skills. We prepare postgraduate students for a career in research. We explore career prospects in biodiversity, and we also provide with the opportunity to observe and track students for permanent positions. So the student program, we always advertise it, and I think you can see the link there. It's always ideal that you go into our webpage in order to see when we advertise them. We advertise them around about just around October, September, and you can apply for that. We would pay for your postgraduate studies, but we also have the nature conservation students, environmental management students that come and do their practical and on-the-job skills programs here. So other than the studentship, we, as I said, we do the internship programs, where we also pay a particular stipend. We also host NRF and SASTA internships. We have a very big program, and this is down in the Cape, called the Drone Range Kirstenbosch internship. This is only at Kirstenbosch, unfortunately, and we put up students or qualified graduates through all the Drone Range scholarship, and they stay with us for 2 years, and we pay their stipends. In the currently, we also have the Groensebenza internship program, and the students that we have, or the graduates that we have now on the Groensebenza program, will be finishing their stint at the end of December. They've been with us for 2 years, and the next one will be opening around February, March next year. But it will be important that you keep your lookout. I mean, the Groensebenza program, we do not only host them, although it's run by SENBI, but they are hosted across the country, across different institutions, private sector institutions, NGOs, government institutions, government departments, but of course, all of them in the biodiversity sector. We also have ad hoc jobs, part-time jobs as education officers, but the bigger thing, which I think is what you would be more interested, is the permanent job opportunities, which not really quite a lot of them, but the sector is growing, and we always are advertising posts, and we look forward to students joining the institution in that way. So there are our contact details. You can follow us in all those social networks. We also do advertise a number of our jobs in those social networks. There are our telephone numbers where you can get in touch with us in order to be able to hear what other opportunities are available. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is SENBI. That is how you can benefit from SENBI. That is how you can join SENBI. Thank you very much, and I'm going to open up for questions. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mrs. Makanya.
Thank you so much, Tebogo. I was really looking forward to your presentation again this year. And it was very encouraging to hear, how students made use of the opportunity last year to start networking and exploring the different opportunities. Just a comment from my side, I noted in that one slide where you talked about the different career fields in biodiversity, you mentioned hydrology, zoology, and so forth. And many of those careers are actually listed in the Department of Higher Education and Training document that talks about occupations in high demand. So it's also interesting or encouraging to hear that the industry is growing from your side. There's just one comment here or a question actually from Majaji Tebogo. She's asking, hydrofarming is a trend now. My question is, will the Sandbee start a new garden displaying hydrofarmed species?
Okay. Sure. I'm not sure if any of our scientists have explored it. But this is something I can go and ask. I don't want to lie to you and say we're going to explore it. I know a couple of our, no, not a couple of, all our horticulturists will be sitting in a strategic session where they will be exploring new ideas, and I'll be joining them for their session in the next 2 weeks. And maybe this is something that I can try and bring it up with them about that. I know they are now exploring new things, so nothing will stop them from exploring something like that. Thank you for bringing that up. I myself have never thought of it.
Well, it's certainly a great idea. Also, in terms of just displaying all the latest impacts that all of the new technologies have had on us. I'd asked the previous speaker also to share with us just his thoughts on the impact of technology, on their field, which is agricultural economics. I'm just wondering, in terms of biodiversity, if you have any comments or can share with us how technology is impacting.
There's just no way that technology can't have an impact on our business or our practice, so a lot of our scientists are now really looking into different ways of doing the work that they do. But you will also appreciate the fact that a number of our scientists have been in the sector for some time, and it takes time for them to start exploring new ways of doing things, which is why the hip and happening scientists of today needs to come in and say to them, how about we do things in this way? How about we explore doing things in this way based on the trend in technology? However, one of the things that we have found that because of technology, we always have to remind people about how important it is to still appreciate nature as it is. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So a number of times, based on technology, we tend to forget that there must be a way of appreciating nature. Let me give you this example. So I facilitate learning programs for learners that visit the botanical garden, and they would come in and I mean the teenagers of today, what is the importance of a botanical garden to them? But we have looked at ways of how do we get them to use this thing that they have in their hand called a cell phone to be part of the program, so we have it, we through our botanist, we using things like the iNaturalist system, where the learners are able to take a picture of a plant, upload it on an app, and get more information about the plant. So they've appreciated the plant life as it is, as they see it in the garden, but here's technology coming in to assist them to understand more about the plant than to have to go and read a book, if you understand what I mean.
I hear what you're saying. So I hear there's a lot of opportunity for maybe using technology in a very responsible way so that we don't take away from the benefits of nature and engaging, with nature.
Definitely.
Okay, those who are on the attending, you are welcome to raise your hands if you want to ask any questions. Tebogo is here, and you already heard feedback that there were some students who, made some strides in terms of their development last year after the session. So there's nothing preventing you from doing that afterwards, but he is here now to answer any live questions. Okay, I'm going to say going, gone. Tebogo, thank you very much. Doesn't seem like we have any questions at the moment. If you would still like to ask a question, I'm just going to share some details with you. But if you think of a question, please post it in the chat or just raise your hand. I'm just going to share my screen again. So from our side, we just wanted to also share with you that the Directorate for Counselling and Career Development is available by email. So you're welcome to send us an email to counselling@unisa.ac.za. And remember that our directorate supports students in terms of their career, their academic, as well as their personal development. You're also welcome to schedule an online appointment on Microsoft Teams, or then to contact a counsellor at a regional office closest to you. On our website, we have a lot of resources such as the career brochures that I shared with you earlier. So please also just go and take a look at the resources available on our website. And then on our YouTube channel, we've published recordings of sessions such as this one. And we will also be publishing excuse me, we will also be publishing a recording of this session on our YouTube channel. So also just go and take a look at whether there are sessions that you may have missed that you would like to catch up on. And then just in terms of future events, on the My Unisa events calendar, we regularly update to publish events such as this one, where you can talk or listen to professionals in different industries and get information about managing your career. And you are welcome to contact either myself or Mrs. Mandamakanya for any further questions or comments, or if you have suggestions for these sessions, we are open also to receiving those. Tebogo, I see there's a question on the chat. Let me just go there. Tinyuku's asking Tebogo if you can share your academic history, where you went to school, what you studied, as well as how you were able to advance to where you are now.
Okay, thank you so much. I have done a course, an environmental course with Rhodes University on environmental education and practices that I did a couple of years ago. And since then, I've done several training around school or facilitation of learning program. I've advanced. I've been with the institution for some time, and have grown up in Senbi in the institution through the different small courses that I have done. I hope I've answered the question properly.
Okay, and Tebogo, maybe just when you completed your course, did you immediately start working with SANBI, or were there other stops along the way?
Okay, there were only 2 stops, amazingly so. I was based at the what do they call it now? The Litsong Natural History Museum. And I nearly said its former name, Transvaal Museum. That's what it used to be called. Yes. And then I joined SANBI as a junior education officer, and currently working as a center manager, managing the environmental education center.
Okay, thank you very much, Tebogo. I see there's a hand to Lile. You're welcome to unmute.
Greetings all. My name is Tsulile Mgomezulu. I did environmental management at Unisa. I need an advice. Okay, on the Career Expo, I found out that I don't qualify for program. I'm working permanent, but I want to change my career. I'm working in the finance department for the local government, but I wish to change to environmental management. The problem is that when I see the posters, I don't have the experience on the related posters. I need an advice on how I can work this out.
Tulili, thank you very
you.
much. So if I understood you correctly, you did your environmental management through Unisa, but you are currently working in a finance position. So maybe just broadly, the question is about, how could you think about approaching now, changing from where you are currently, but moving more into the environmental management or biodiversity space? Tebogo,
Yes.
do you have any ideas?
Sure. I would have thought you'd be the one to answer that one, Lisa. It's a one needs to make that decision to say, I'm now leaving this and I'm going to go into this. And of course, you can't make a decision of leaving one directorate or department to join another one when you don't have the qualification for another one. So it means studying while you are where you are, and then when you're ready, you can move to the other side. I know a plethora of people who did that kind of a thing. Ms. Makanya seems to want to add there, but that's just the only advice I could give.
Thank you very much, Tebogo. Mrs. Makanya?
I think it was an oopsie of a head. But
Okay.
anyway, now that I've been given the platform, I will also advise Lile to also visit the nearest careers office or student counseling at Unisa, because it is important to sit down with a student counselor and have a conversation around your career development as well. That's the advice that I can give you to Lile. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Lele. From our side also, I would reiterate what Mrs. Makanya now shared, is that, since your situation is unique to you, it would be helpful to have a more extensive conversation with one of our counsellors. The contact details are still up on the screen, so please don't hesitate to reach out. But something that Tebogo mentioned, and also our previous speaker, that I think really resonates with me, is the whole issue of the importance of networking and doing research about, what are the requirements and how you could start preparing for those. But in conversation with a counsellor, you would then be able to clarify more in your specific situation. What are some of the plans you can make in terms of preparing to transition from your current position to what it is that you want to do? I think that brings us to the end of our session. I don't see any other hands or question in the chat. I'm going to hand over to Becky, who will just end off the session for us. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. As we come to the end of this enlightening career talk event, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of my colleagues to express my gratitude to our speaker, Mr. Mataba, for sharing his knowledge with us, where you explain what is CNB all about, the skills and careers that are needed in the sector, and also the opportunities that are available for students. You also spoke about the positive and encouraging feedback about last year's career talk. That was encouraging. Thank you, Mr. Mataba. To our students, thank you for participating. We hope this insight gained today will help you in your career journey. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Becky, and thank you again from our side as well. Just a reminder that you will get a notification when the recording is ready. It should happen later this afternoon. We will also publish an edited version of this recording on our YouTube channel. So from our side, thank you, colleagues, Mrs. Makanya, Mr. Mzobi, as well as Ms. Maboa, who joined us from the Johannesburg office. And thank you again very much to Boho, and we hope you have a very good day further. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy Women's Day to all the women on the platform.
Thank you very much to
Thank you,
Boho.
Tebogo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.